Today we are starting the Algebra Word Problem Unit. Today's topic is consecutive integers. When we solve word problems, we need to define the variable or variables, write an algebraic equation, solve and show your work, and then to answer the problem completely in a full sentence. The word consecutive means one right after another. Let's take a look at some examples. The numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then 17, 18, 19, and 20 are all consecutive integers. So we need to ask ourselves, to get from 1 to 2, what do we need to add? That's right, we need to add 1. To get from 1 to 3, we need to add 2. To get from 1 to 4, we need to add 3. Let's take a look at the bottom series. To get from 17 to 18, we need to add 1. To get from 17 to 19, we need to add 2. To get from 17 to 20, we need to add 3. The reason this is important is so that we can make a general rule. If we start with x, to get from x to the next consecutive integer, we need to add 1. To get to the next one, we need to add 2. And then to get to the last one, we need to add 3. The series can continue, so we could make x plus 4, x plus 5. It all depends on the individual problem. Let's take a look at consecutive even integers. We have the problems 2, then 4, 6, and 8. We could continue and make 10 and 12 if we wanted to, or we could start, let's say, at 20 and make 20, 22, 24, and 26. To get from 2 to 4, we need to add 2. To get from 2 to 6, we need to add 4. And to get from 2 to 8, we need to add 6. Let's check the bottom series. To get from 20 to 22, we need to add 2. To get from 20 to 24, we need to add 4. And to get from 20 to 26, we need to add 6. How do we come up with a general rule here? Well, let's say we start with x. To get to the next even one, we need to add 2. To get to the one after that, we're going to add 4. And then we will add 6 and so on. Let's take a look at consecutive odd integers. Let's say we start at 1 and then 3 and then 5 and then 7. And then let's look at 19, 21, 23, and 25. To get from 1 to 3, what do we add? We need to add 2. To get from 1 to 5, we need to add 4. To get from 1 to 7, we need to add 6. On the bottom, to get from 19 to 21, we're going to add 2. To get from 19 to 23, we'll add 4. And then to get from 19 to 25, we'll add 6. So that means if we start with an odd number that's x, to get to the next one we need to add 2, and then add 4, and then we would be adding 6. But that looks the same as consecutive even integers. Why is that? Well, let's say we start at 1. That's an odd number, so we would go odd, even, odd, even, odd, even. If you start with an even number, you'll have even, odd, even, odd. The distance between every even number and every odd number is exactly the same. What determines whether or not it's even or odd is how the problem starts. That's the part that I take care of. So when you're setting up these questions, you need to think about the following things. How many things do I define? What type of integer is it? What do I set the equation equal to? And then does my answer make sense? You'll notice I color-coded the questions on the screen. The first problem says the sum of 3 consecutive integers is 138. That means we're defining 3 integers. So x is going to be our first integer. Because it says consecutive integers and not consecutive evens or odds, the next one's going to be x plus 1, would be our second integer, and x plus 2 will be our third integer. For our equation, it says the sum of. What does the word sum mean? It means the addition to an addition problem. If we add up these three integers, we will get 3x, 1 plus 2 gives you 3, and then the problem says is, which is equals 138. How do we solve it? Well, let's subtract 3 from both sides. So we'll get 3x equals 135. And then if we divide both sides by 3, we are going to get x equals 45. The question is, how do we get the other numbers? Well, that all depends on how we defined our variable. We said x was the first integer, so to get the next one, we'll have 45 plus 1. That will give us 46. 45 plus 2 will give us 47. You can always test to make sure your answers work, because if you add all three of these numbers up, it should total 138. So we would state our answer saying the integers are 45, 46, and 47. Let's try another one. This one says the sum of 3 consecutive even integers is 210. Find the integers. How many things are we defining? That's right, we need to define 3 integers. So x is going to be our first integer. X plus 2 is going to be our second one because the question says consecutive even. So we need to make sure we skip the next number. The next one then will be x plus 4. That's the entire define your variable section. To get our equation, it says the sum of. If we add the first integer with the second and the third, we'll have 3x, 2 plus 4 gives you 6, and then equals 210. If we subtract 6 from both sides, we will get 3x equals 204. And if you divide by 3, we will get x equals 68. Well, let's check it. Is 68 an even number? Yes, it is, because 8 is an even digit. When we plug it back in, 68 plus 2 gives us 70, and 68 plus 4 gives us 72. That means that the integers are 68, 70, and 72. So we've tried a consecutive integer, we've tried a consecutive even integer, now we're going to take a look at a consecutive odd integer. The sum of 3 consecutive odd integers is 45. X will still be our first integer. Because it says the sum of 3 numbers, that means we need to define 3 things. So x will be our first integer. Consecutive odd means we're skipping over the number right next to it. So to get to the next odd, we need to add 2. So x plus 2 will be our second integer. And then x plus 4 equals our third integer. The sum of means that we need to add them together. So for our equation, we will have 3x plus 6. The word is means equals, and then it says 45. We will subtract 6 from both sides to get 3x equals 39. And then to get x by itself, we need to divide by 3. That gives us an x value of 13. And 13 is odd. To figure out the other ones, we're going to plug it back into our variable. So if 13 is our x, 13 plus 2 gives us 15, and 13 plus 4 gives us 17. That means as our answer, the integers are 13, 15, and 17. Let's try one more example together. Question number 4 says the sum of 3 consecutive odd integers is negative 75. Find the integers. Maybe hit the pause button and try to define this one on your own. Okay, so x is our first integer, x plus 2 is our second integer, and x plus 4 is our third integer. If we go ahead and set up our equation, we'll have 3x plus 6 equals negative 75. You have to be careful when you subtract negative 6. Negative 75 minus 6 becomes more negative. That gives you negative 81. If you divide by 3, we'll get an x value of negative 7, or negative 27. When we plug it back in, you also have to be careful. Negative 27 plus 2 gives you a negative 25. Negative 27 plus 4 makes it less negative, so that becomes negative 23. So as your final answer, you have the integers are negative 27, negative 25, and negative 23. If you have any questions, be sure to see Mrs. Lewis in homework hour.